so much.
Hello, welcome to another instalment of Rugby Nation. I'm Nick McArdle and, well, next to me, sort of, Beth Newman from Rugby.com.au. Beth, it has been a genuinely interesting 24 hours in rugby, with Rugby Australia outlining its broadcast offering for the next 5 years. A lot of positive feedback, a lot of interest. It's actually really exciting.
Yeah, 100%. I think the reaction that we've seen from the announcement on Monday afternoon of some new innovations and some new concepts is really promising. So Rugby Australia CEO Rob Clark kind of unveiled the proposals they're going to take to broadcasters, which from a Super Rugby perspective includes, a trans-Tasman option, so New Zealand can be involved if they choose to, or a domestic option, which could be just 5 Australian teams, or could be potentially involving a Pacific Island team and a Japanese team as well. So there's a couple of options they've got there. But then the really exciting thing I think that people probably were a little bit surprised by is the addition of, first of all, a State of Union concept, they're calling it. So kind of like State of Origin, a Queensland, New South Wales series, and also a Super 8 series, which is something that kind of brings together the top two teams of Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, one team from Japan ideally, and a team from South America in kind of a Champions League style competition. So these innovations that they're hoping that broadcasters might want a little bit of a piece of to try and grow the exposure of the game and liven up Super Rugby and its ramifications as well.
There's a lot of stuff to like there. Of course, the Lions tour in 2025 hasn't been included, so that will be dealt with outside of that broadcast deal, which obviously is an interesting element in itself. But it just seems to be some really good reaction. And Rob Clark, the interim CEO of Rugby Australia, indicated that yes, there was some competitive tension, and of course, between broadcasters. Of course, that's essential for getting the sort of broadcast revenue that's going to sustain the game in Australia. Absolutely,
and I think the key thing for it as well is in the past where they've kind of they've offered it all up as one package to one broadcaster, there's a definite appetite to try and slice this up. So maybe the State of Union product that Rob Clark was saying earlier this week, they're really keen to try to get that to a free-to-air broadcaster. And then you have the Super Rugby product, and also things like a National Club Championship and Shoot Shield and Queensland Premier Rugby as well. So there's all these little pieces of the cake that could maybe go to different broadcasters to try and expand the reach of rugby, but still keep it in a lot of the areas where people are familiar with it and are expecting that there is coverage of rugby in Australia.
And the other little element that is worth noting too is that Rugby Australia, after initially being asked to express an interest in being part of the New Zealand comp, has basically drawn a line in the sand. They've put a date on it now, first week in September, because they need to get on with it. So sooner rather than later, New Zealand have to indicate whether they want to be a part of it.
Yeah, they've flipped the table on New Zealand, which I think everyone is quite happy to see from Australia. Hamish McLennan, we've spoken about it a few times, the Rugby Australia chairman, is not happy with having terms dictated to Australia by New Zealand, and they're committed to having 5 teams in a competition, and I think it's really a positive sign for Australian rugby to dig their heels in and commit to keeping the 5 teams regardless of what New Zealand think they want, and really turning the tables on them.
So I guess it'll be interesting to find out what the players are thinking about all of that and what's on offer. Let's get Reece Hodge's take on that. Reece, welcome to Rugby Nation.
Thanks for having me.
Your first impressions on what's on offer from Rugby Australia in that new broadcast deal. There's a couple of different little things there. Let's start with basically their equivalent of State of Origin, the State of the Union. It's got a nice little ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think, I guess you see how much passion there is in the New South Wales versus Queensland matches already, and, throw a few boys from, I guess, Melbourne, the Force, and guys from all over who are, I guess, were born in their original states. And, you want to represent your kind of state of birth and do the jersey proud. So I think it's a pretty cool concept and something that I think a lot of the players will definitely welcome.
Yeah, how much would you relish the chance to maybe run out in a blue jersey for a change, or just a different shade of blue, I guess?
Yes, sky blue would be a bit different to navy, but it's kind of weird thinking about it, to be honest. I think since I've been down in Melbourne now, it kind of feels like my my jersey to, I guess, represent Victoria. And I guess we all grow up as kids in New South Wales playing rugby, wanting to represent the Waratahs. So, yeah, it'd be a bit of a weird one, and cross that bridge if and when we come to it.
So that's one of the things on offer. Another really interesting aspect to it is what's like the Champions League, the Super 8 tournament, which is the top two teams from Australia, top two provincial teams, top two from New Zealand, South Africa. You might throw in one from Argentina or one from Japan or a couple from South America. That's got a difference about it as well. I imagine as a player, that's exciting.
Yeah, I think it's quite a good concept. I think being able to combine, I guess, the best parts of Super Rugby in terms of playing against the best opposition from a number of countries, and I guess also having to earn the chance to get there by coming in the top two in your own competition sounds like it'll work quite well. Obviously, logistically, it'd be quite tough, but as an initial concept, I think a lot of the players would love it. I think, whether you come first or second in Australia and you're getting to play against those top Kiwi teams and South African and, yeah, as you say, Japanese and South American as well. It's pretty cool, and it's kind of almost like a club version of the Rugby Championship. So I think a lot of the players would be keen to get involved.
There has been a lot of discussion the last 24 hours about these new innovations, but one thing that was interesting was Rob Clark kind of laying down a deadline for whether New Zealand want to be involved in what Australia wants to do going forward. I guess for you as a player in a year that's been so uncertain and there's been so much lacking in clarity for 2021, is that kind of heartening for you to see that there's going to be a date where you know what next year will bring?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a big element of us just really enjoying being able to play footy in the first place at the moment. I think it's obviously good to have some clarity and certainty beyond this season. But as I said, at the moment, we realise how lucky we are to be playing rugby at all at the moment, and representing Victoria, obviously going through some tough times back there in Melbourne at the moment. So for us, we're obviously happy to be on tour. It's the best part of rugby, being on tour with your mates and getting to have fun times, I guess, on the road. And we're really looking forward to hopefully finishing this comp off well and keep enjoying ourselves along the way.
Just on that and what's happening in Victoria at the moment, I mean, even if you were trying to escape that news, it would be pretty hard every day when they're posting numbers and of cases and deaths, and you hear that chat about what people are going through in the lockdown. What are you hearing when you speak to whether it's Rebels staff or friends down there, and obviously a lot of Rebels fans too are doing it tough?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on who you speak to. I think, some people are quite enjoying the solitude of isolation and being able to do stuff without, I guess, having too many commitments. But on the more serious side of things, it's affected a lot of people very deeply in both personal and professional life. And we do realise how lucky we are to, I guess, have escaped in a way before that kind of second wave came through, and to be on the road and able to represent those people that, are stuck in their homes. And hopefully the last few weeks we've been able to, I guess, give them a bit of joy and a bit of pride in Victoria and the Rebels and Melbourne and as a city. And that's kind of what we're aiming to do. Obviously heading into the bye next week, got a big game against the Reds on the weekend. And we should really try and do those Victorians and our supporters and friends and families back home proud.
Is that something that you guys talk a lot about as a group? I've heard Dave Vessel's mentioned it a couple of times, and a couple of the other guys that talking about playing for Victoria and keeping those sort of things, kind of front and centre in your motivations.
Yeah, I think when we first kind of got on the road, it was, I guess, talked about a little bit, and it's probably something that we don't want to talk about too much. We realise that we are playing for a lot of people back home and bringing a lot of joy to a lot of our supporters, but we kind of can't revisit it every single day. It's kind of something that's definitely there in the forefront of our minds, and we all realise, what we're playing for and how lucky we are to be up here. So it's probably not something that we have to revisit every day.
Just on that and the fact that you are playing, but I guess under difficult circumstances. I mean, you guys are doing things differently, doing it tough in some ways, and so much of the country is doing it tough. From the playing group's point of view, I'm not just talking about the Rebels, but across the board. I mean, you're contracted through until 2023, I think. or the end of 2023. Can you get a sense of whether there's a commitment now from players to want to stay and see out this transition, I guess, of what Australian rugby is going to become over the next few years? Is there that sense of wanting to be a part of it, Reece?
Look, I think everyone's really enjoying this Super Rugby AU competition to start off with. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about what the competition's going to look like down the track. But if it's any kind of, I guess, version of this at the moment, guys are loving playing it. And I'm sure a lot of guys will want to stick around. But there's just that uncertainty, I guess, if you look past this season. And hopefully that's kind of secured in the near future to give guys a genuine reason to stay and to be able to commit long term. I think, you know, we've got the best lifestyle in the world, I reckon, being able to play rugby in Australia and best conditions to do it, you know, not having to freeze your ass off like over in the UK and France. But, yeah, I think a lot of guys want to stay. It's a matter of, I guess, guys doing what's best for themselves and their families long term. And hopefully if we have some, I guess, clarity and security heading into next year, then hopefully it will give guys a bit more of an incentive to stick around and hopefully have some more success both domestically and internationally when the kind of international rugby landscape does get back to some more normality.
It does seem to be that the Rebels over the last few months have kind of been the centre of a lot of stories about guys moving and that sort of thing. Like, how do you guys handle that, this constant speculation, particularly given, you know, the current scenario of where guys are going and who's staying and all of that sort of thing? How have you handled that as a squad?
We kind of talked a lot about at the start of this competition that, you know, whichever team you play in, you very rarely get to play with the same kind of 22, 23 blokes week in, week out for more than one season. So for us to realise that it's the last time this exact group's ever going to be together. And, you know, we've fallen just short over the last couple of seasons of finals in the kind of Super Rugby competition that existed prior to coronavirus. And, you know, we're very motivated, very keen to get our first silverware as a club. And I guess guys that are heading off overseas, whether it's short term or long term, you know, there's a few of them kind of heading off, and it's probably extra motivation, extra incentive for us to really get a result for them, send them off, I guess, from Australian rugby with some success and make them want to come back, whether that's, you know, in 1 year's time or 3 years' time. I guess as a club, that's our duty to want guys playing for the Rebels. Both in the near future and in the long term, wanting to come back if they do, I guess, head overseas for experience. So, yeah, we're loving our time together as a group, and, you know, time on the road together really brings you closer as a group. Looking forward to Trivia Tuesday tonight that Billy Meeks has been running. So that's in a few hours, and, you know, just times like that and being able to bond together is really good for the group. And, you know, we're just hoping that, yeah, as I said, to have some success together this season.
What sort of questions get thrown out on Trivia Tuesday? I mean, if Billy's organising, I can't imagine they're difficult questions.
There's actually a few quiz masters. There's Boyd Killingworth's always good for a few road questions. He's loves his geography questions and some old kind of comic books and all sorts of cartoons. So there's a really good range of questions.
So that's Boyd Killingworth. Who else is formulating those very tough questions?
Yeah, so there's a section that Billy runs. It's kind of 10 questions each. So you've got Billy, Boyd with some real rogue ones, and then JB, Big John Bettino, who's one of our analysts who's been around for, you know, 6 or 7 years now. He does the kind of music section. So a lot of questions kind of designed around recognising the song, which movie or TV series it's from. And yeah, we got a really good range of questions over the last few weeks, so it's always something to look forward to on a Tuesday night.
And who are the brains?
I feel like it's not so much brains; it's more like random knowledge that kind of gets you the win in this kind of format. So a few surprises, I reckon. Like Declan Moore, who's one of the young guys. I was on his team last week, and I was actually gobsmacked by the kind of stuff that he knew. So he's one that you definitely want in your team. Trying to think who else. A couple of the physios have got some good general knowledge, and they're always good to have on your team. So it's always 2 forwards, 2 backs, and 1 staff member. So it's a good mix, and yeah, fingers crossed get the win tonight.
What other things have you guys been doing at Trivia Tuesday? Is there any other weekly activities for the guys?
I guess the nature of our schedule the past few weeks, we've had 3 Friday night games in a row, so we've actually had quite a good chance over the weekends to, come close as a group. And the weather's been quite good here, except for a few days here and there where it's been raining. But being right next to the beach, we've been able to get out to cafes for group coffees and go for recovery swims and stuff like that. So there's a few good crews floating around at the moment. And I guess one of the things that you got to be cautious of in tour is not hanging out with the same guys week in, week out. So making sure that, you get to know different teammates and go out of your way to spend time with guys that you wouldn't normally, which I think is really good for the group going forward. So no, it's been good fun, and we'll keep our eyes peeled and keep our brains together for some fun activities apart from Trivia Tuesday.
Yeah, nice. The New South Wales Central Coast, not a bad place to be. Hodge, you talked about the last couple of years briefly, and the fact that things have gone really well for part of the season, and they're not so well for another part of the season, and you've kind of just caved in at the wrong time. And I know that Dave Vessels has been really sort of introspective about, okay, what can he do differently and change things up? What are you doing differently as a playing group? Is there something about recovery or training or what you do away from the organisation? What can you do to try and change all that?
I think if you look at our last 2 seasons, we kind of started off with a bang, and we're in red hot form at the start of the comp, and then kind of tailed away. And I think the nature of the previous Super Rugby comps is that, unless you're the Crusaders, you pretty much can't peak for 16, 17 games in a row. And I think something that we did quite well at the start of this Super Rugby comp was, we started off quite slowly with a loss against the Sunwolves and Brumbies, and then kind of built into our season quite well. And I guess with the restart of the year, it's probably been a similar story. We started off quite slowly, a few patchy performances, and we haven't hit our straps yet, but we're starting to get there and starting to build our game quite nicely. So I think there's a real message, from the leadership group and the coaching staff of trying to improve and get better and build every week. I think we realise that, there's still quite a lot of improvement left in us, and hopefully if we're hitting, the top end of our performances come the second last, third last week of the regular competition, then hopefully if we earn a berth in the finals, then hopefully we can be playing our best footy come the business end of this Super Rugby AU.
Last weekend against the Brumbies was probably the most complete performance you guys have shown, at least in Super Rugby AU. What do you think clicked or was different, about that game?
I think our game probably suits wet weather footy quite well. I think, we do pride ourselves kind of on our kicking game, and everyone being fit, and without giving too much of our game away, I'm trying to be a bit coy there, but I think that we kind of had a lot of clarity heading into the Brumbies game about the way we wanted to play the game and the way that we best play our footy, and I think we executed that a lot better than we have in previous weeks. As I said previously, I don't think that wasn't a complete performance. We still have a lot of improvement left in us, hopefully. But yeah, it was nice to have a performance where you kind of didn't come away afterwards, whether it's a win or a loss, kind of thinking that wasn't great kind of thing. It's a bit patchy, and I think the improvement for us, the disappointing thing at the end of that game was actually letting the Brumbies in and throwing away our bonus point towards the last sort of 5 to 10 minutes. So, we're confident and I guess pretty happy with that performance last weekend. But yeah, we've still got a lot to improve on, and hopefully that can continue with the Reds on Saturday.
Yeah, great opportunity now too, isn't there? You're in second spot, 4 points behind the Brumbies. The way the finals work, so the top team goes straight into the final, and 2 and 3 play off for the right to play in that final. You're in the mix. It's a good spot to be with a bit of momentum.
Yeah, I think the whole competition has kind of been blown wide open after last weekend's results. I think you saw how well the Waratahs played, and obviously the Force pushed us right to the end last week as well. So it's good for the competition. It's good for the fans, viewing, and everyone's in it, and it's going to be that team in this next kind of block of 4 or 5 weeks that plays the best footy and the most consistent footy that's going to earn that week off in the first week of the finals. And I guess I'm actually not too sure how the venues are going to work with everything going on at the moment. But I guess even second place is going to be a bit of a bonus and a bit of a home ground advantage compared to third. So there's a lot to play for in these next 5 weeks. And yeah, you've got to play good footy to earn your spot.
It hasn't really been all smooth sailing for you guys with injuries and stuff as well. I guess maybe that's been a silver lining for you to be able to play a couple of games at fullback without Dane there. How have you found that, being able to play one spot, consistently?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's obviously it's pretty disappointing to lose Dane. He's obviously our captain, one of our best and most experienced players. But I think over the past few weeks, we've had some young guys really step up to the plate in taking over from some experienced guys who have either been injured or rotated or not been selected. So I think the competition for spots in the squad at the moment is really good. The trainings have been, Test Match Tuesday has been nice and tough and quite intense. But yeah, me personally, I have enjoyed my time at fullback over the past few weeks. I've felt quite comfortable at the back and felt like it's, with wet conditions over the past couple of weeks, it's suited my kicking game and I guess positional play a little bit as well. And it's been nice to get my hands on the ball a little bit more. But yeah, I think as a backline unit, we weren't happy at all with our first kind of 4 or 5 weeks in the competition. And the weekend was a bit of a step forward for us. Still a bit of a way to go in terms of execution, but just being able to create a few more opportunities. We're happy with how that went on the weekend and really want to take some positives from that into the Reds game this weekend.
Reece, just talk a little bit about Campbell Magnay. I noticed he made Rugby.com.au's Team of the Week this week, and he's a guy who had so many raps on him when he first started at the Reds, but he had a couple of really big injuries. I haven't quite seen the best of him. I mean, how good? You've seen him on the training track, obviously. He's a lump of a human. How good could Campbell be?
Yeah, his potential's unbelievable. He's just how hard he hits in defence. He's always carries strong in attack and reads the game quite well as well. So I think for Mango, it's just putting some consistent performances together. I think everyone's seen how well he can play and how much talent he has, but being able to back it up, 3-4 weeks in a row over this next kind of month is going to be really important for him and for our team's success. He's such a massive part of our game in that midfield with his strong defence and getting us over the advantage line that, if he's firing, it's usually that the Rebels are firing as well. So he's a massive part of our midfield, and I really can't wait to watch. It's pretty cool to watch from the back when you got your 13 and 12 driving the opposition back 10 metres in a tackle like happened on the weekend. It makes your job a lot easier. So I'm pretty excited to watch him going forward.
And I think there was a tweet too on the weekend that perhaps the Rebels backline had more redheads in it than any backline in the history of Super Rugby, certainly from an Australian standpoint. And you were counted in that redheaded head count. I'm just wondering how you feel about that.
Well, does it look red at the moment?
Oh, it's difficult to see. Do the lights?
Maybe an orange tinge, but no, I was pretty disappointed in Mel for that one. I think came back at her with I think our hair colours are pretty similar. So I guess speaking for myself, Andrew Deegan, I'm trying to think who else. Matt Phillip probably wasn't too happy with the old inclusion in the redheads either. But no, I guess is what it is. I mean, a bit of wet weather, a bit of water, and get the lights in the wrong spot, you probably look like a bit of an orange tinge. I'll take it.
Fair enough.
A pretty long bow to draw to describe Andrew Deegan as a red nut.
Yeah, that's pretty loose description for Deegs, I think.
But just on him though, that playing 10 on the weekend, what did you make of his performance and what have you seen from him?
Yeah, I was really impressed. Obviously, controlled the game so well with his kicking. I think just his game management on the weekend, he really showed his experience, whereas obviously played a bit of footy over in the UK. Has been the main man at the Force for the kind of last 18 months before he came to the Rebels also. And it was really impressive. He's so easy to play alongside because he's very dominant, very clear, and with his calling, and I think he took some really good options on the weekend that really put the Brumbies back on the back foot, back into their own half. So yeah, it was really his understanding of our game plan and being able to execute it so well that probably put us in quite a good position to attack, throughout that game, and pretty much led to the result in the end.
Hey, Reece, just before we get to chat about the games on the weekend, I just want to wind back to the World Cup. I haven't seen you since before the World Cup. That 3-game suspension, I'm sure at the time you were absolutely devastated. Did that take you a while to get over? Obviously, you had a decent off-season, and even down the stretch you had that time off during the COVID lockdown as well. But did it take you a while to get over that?
Not really, to be honest, Nick. I think it was disappointing at the time, and probably had two options when it happened. It was, you either dwell on it and think about how, I guess, tough the situation is, and kind of put your head down and go the wrong way. But I think I really tried to just take it in my stride. There's not much you can do about it after we decided not to appeal it, and I realised that I was that lucky to be over in Japan, with the squad at the time, and really tried to throw myself into preparing the team for the 3 games that I missed, and play as much of a role as a squad player that I could at that time. And I was lucky enough that Czech, I guess, saw the way I was training and had faith in me and selected me again for the quarterfinal. So I think the World Cup as a whole was pretty disappointing. Obviously, to bow out in the quarterfinals is not what we went over there with the aim of doing. But me personally, I think there's no way that nothing good to come out of thinking why me, and putting your head down. So I think just got on with it, and just keep playing footy and enjoy my time off.
Yes, now it's kind of strange to think that was a year ago. So much has happened, but looking forward as well, Dave Rennie coming in as Wallabies coach, how much have you had to do with him, and what are you thinking about the kind of new era for the Wallabies?
I've spoken to Dave a couple of times. I think he's really good to talk to. He's got an interesting rugby brain and seems to be pretty clear on what he wants in terms of both individuals and I guess also the makeup of his team. So there's obviously quite a lot of water to go under the bridge before Wallaby squad selections, and we don't really know what it looks like later in the year exactly at the moment. But to have a chance to, I guess, be playing week in, week out in Super Rugby AU and trying to earn a spot in that new Wallaby squad under a new coach is, I guess, at the forefront of every player's mind at the moment. And for me personally, I always had quite a slow start to the season and wasn't too happy with my performance over the first few weeks. And, to be able to get a couple of, wins, 3 in a row now for us and be able to contribute a little bit more on the weekend was pleasing for me. And, as I said previously about, Campbell, I think myself also, I'm just looking for that consistency now and really put some good performances together back to back and earn my selection like everyone else should be.
It's amazing. It's a different year. We're mid-August, but there's still so much rugby to play at provincial and also, fingers crossed, international level. We're heading towards round 7 of Super Rugby AU. 2 matches in Queensland this weekend. Friday night, the Force and the Waratahs. And obviously, you talked about the Waratahs and that performance on the weekend. And the Force have managed to put some good periods of play together as well. If both teams are at their best, it's a cracking game.
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. I think the thing about this competition is it really, as you've seen, it depends on who turns up on the night. And I guess if you're not at your best, you're going to get punished. So I think the Force have obviously showed some really good signs and been in, every one of their games for the most part. So I think they'll be looking for another scalp, and they've had a lot of success over the Waratahs, over the years. So the Waratahs will be pretty wary of what's coming, and obviously looking to build upon their first half performance in particular from against the Reds. So should be a pretty exciting game. Hopefully the rain holds up off north, and give them some good conditions on Friday night for some running rugby.
And then Saturday night, just up the M1, you guys are taking on the Reds at Suncorp Stadium. How wary do you guys have to be of a Red side that will be, stinging from that loss against the Waratahs last weekend?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt in the Reds' quality. Obviously, you saw the way they played against the Brumbies the previous week, and we've drawn with them already this year in quite a tough tussle at Brookie Oval in some wet weather as well. So we're definitely not underestimating them, and we don't have the right to either. We've been poor in some games this year, and one good performance doesn't make a season. So we're under no illusions about the fact that they'll be up for it this Saturday at home, and it's going to be a very tough contest. So I guess another element to this week is it's the first time we've done the kind of fly in, fly out travel outside of New South Wales or ACT since we've, I guess, relocated up from Melbourne. So it's another challenge for us, and we need to really be mentally switched on and physically up for the challenge come Saturday night.
Some quality games over the last few weeks, and let's hope it continues this weekend. Reece, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on Rugby Nation. All the best for Suncorp on Saturday night, and apologies for the cameo of my dog over the last half an hour or so. We'll deal with that. Won't be back next week. Beth, enjoyed that, and thank you for your company again this week on Rugby Nation. I'm Nick McArdle. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.